Siberia. The name means sleeping land. 4 million square miles of taiga forest, tundra, marsh and mountain stretching from the Ural Mountains east to the Bering Straits and Alaska. Western Europe lies more than 3,000 miles away. But this year the Soviet spring has brought more than the usual thaw into this empty land. For the first time ever, it has brought foreigners. It has brought an international motorcar event to the Soviet Union. It has brought the Camel Trophy. Teams have come from all walks of life and from all over the world. 16 countries have arrived, from the picturesque Canary Islands to Germany to the United Kingdom, who won the event last year. The Russians, the Austrians and the Greeks have entered teams for the first time, while the United States has returned to the event after an absence of 2 years. The two superpowers were competing together at last, in an event which, unlike the World Cup, is designed to break down national barriers, not build them up.
The world's shrinking so fast that we're a community, and you know, the distance across the ocean is not that far. So it's just a matter now of becoming familiar with one another, because our interests and our long-term goals are the same people-wise around the world.
Farnborough, England. A sign of the times and a sign of the Russian commitment to Camel Trophy. For the first time ever, 2 military Antonov 124 transport planes arrive on British soil, here to take the convoy of Land Rovers back to the motherland.
I would like to express our special gratitude for the British Ministry of Defense, which cooperation and support allowed 2 Soviet military aircraft.
These giant transporters can each carry 150,000 kilos of payload, as well as 230,000 kilos of fuel. So they easily swallowed the 34 Land Rovers and tons of equipment that had to be flown to Moscow and on to eastern Siberia. In Red Square, normally closed to vehicles other than the black saloons whisking into the Kremlin, the surprised Soviet citizens got to see the vehicles close up. Metal proof of the success of Glasnost, and proof of those stories of Western wealth. The core of the convoy is the 16 Land Rover TDI turbo diesel Discoveries, 1 for each country. In them, the 2 crew members will have to cross more than 1,000 miles of Siberian wilderness in 2 weeks. They will also face special tasks, rather like competitive special stages, both at the beginning and the end of their journey to find a winner. This is the first time the Camel Trophy, now in its 11th year, has left the jungles of equatorial heat. This is a new departure for both the Soviet Union and the Camel Trophy, as the event moves into the temperate zone. The future is unknown, as the vehicles and participants, part adventurers, part competitors, lift off to the Soviet Union. Behind them they leave 6 months of training, most of which has been hard graft. More than 1.5 million people applied from around the world for this year's event. Anyone can apply, since it is a strictly amateur event. This year, there was a Japanese gardener and a Turkish economist. The selectors had to choose just 32 people for the 16 vehicles, and so subjected the hopefuls to tough testing of their ingenuity, mechanical aptitude, psychological stability, and skills in driving, winching, teamwork, and 1,000 other facets. If you're going to be cooped up with near strangers for weeks on end, you do not want to discover that one collects poisonous snakes and the other likes listening to heavy metal before sunrise. With training and selection taking place on special sites throughout Europe, at Eastnor Castle in England and the Chateau Jeanville near Paris, the unfit, the unhelpful, and the unwanted were weeded out. The final 32, including Andrew Dacey here of the British team, finally walked the tightrope. They were going to Siberia. Their route would take them from Bratsk down to Lake Baikal and then along to Irkutsk. On tarmac, it might take only a few days, but there is no tarmac. Bratsk, the starting point, is there because of the hydroelectric dam, which was the second largest in the world when it was built 30 years ago. It powers the factories and heavy industry that give jobs and smog in equal proportion. As the participants discovered on their arrival, this town has a big heart, but bad lungs.
When the competitors get off the aeroplane, from the charter aeroplane from Moscow, and they arrive in Bratsk, I think the level of adrenaline pumping then is such that you start off thinking that they're going to be winning Camel Trophy. And the other 15 teams are, if you like, the opposition. But that attitude only lasts for the first day, maybe the first day and a half. Because they soon come to realize that the only way we're going to get through this lot on the route that's chosen is if everybody on the convoy works as a team, not 16 individual teams. So their attitude does change. And it changes fairly dramatically over a period of 2.5 weeks. And it's nice to see that change take place. I'm not quite sure what each individual looks forward to, but I know what I looked forward to when I took part. And it was a fairly sobering thought after a day or so that I wasn't going to get to the end with a car that had all the panels straight, and I wasn't going to get there looking clean, tidy and neat. And I think the competitors that take part in this area are going to be no different. They're changed guys at the far end because of the camaraderie, the problems they've had to face collectively. And it's a good thing to see 16 individual teams of guys coming together as one team, and it does change the way people look at their life and this whole event in particular.
But before this happy camaraderie come the first special tasks that must be fought under both sun and moon. These early tasks burn bright on nervous energy as the men get used to the cars, the wild terrain, and their fellow companions, with whom they will have to spend the next 2 weeks in a jolting metal box, day after day, night after night. But unlike previous years, many of this year's tasks take place outside the vehicle, with paddles, compasses, and running shoes, often replacing throttle and steering wheel.
Okay, that's finished.
That's finished?
Yes.
Okay, it's all good.
Not so bad, eh? Now you can go to bed.
Oh, yeah.
It's really only in the last couple of years that we've tried to break away from just vehicle-borne tasks. In the Amazon, we introduced a couple of tasks that involved some of the crew getting out and undertaking a water crossing or similar.
What is pedalers? Okay.
I hope the special tasks are going to be open all the way to the end, or at least the perfect situation would be for the last task to have 2 or 3 teams all on pretty much the same score.
Wat je woord?
Young Eric Brandenburg, a must for any select tea party, is not the only one to feel the strain. The tasks are designed to stretch the competitors in every direction at once. So canoeing is rapidly followed by a ravine crossing and a test of team coordination. It is all too easy not to read the instructions and succumb to the pressure of doing everything well and fast. What was a simple exercise back home becomes something more challenging when you're tired, unsure, and deep in a foreign land.
Stop! Stop!
But you must go on, trying to stay calm under the strain. You need a clear head, and a head for heights, even if that head can sometimes get a little battered.
Hey! Excuse me.
Some tasks are perfectly straightforward. Pick up this heavy tree trunk and run with it along a twisty path under, over, and round the trees. And do it faster than anyone else. The car maneuvering courses are driven against the clock, with the route given to the navigator only seconds before the start. There's plenty of room for error as participants continue down the long road from being individuals to becoming a winning team.
So forward is garage A. Forward is both wheels, all four wheels got to be in.
Why don't you reverse the train?
Just get back in the forward side. Back in.
Right.
Up there, Andy.
Come on then. Tell me, at the time. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Where now? What's this?
There's another garage D. We're supposed to be going reversing this. Back up. We're supposed to reverse. Back up, quick, reverse.
The Yugoslavians reach the end of that road first. Their teamwork are giving them a commanding lead that they will carry from now to the next special tasks 1,000 miles away.
The overall order is Yugoslavia are in the lead with 96 points. Their performance actually has been quite remarkable. They've had maximum points on 3 of the 5 tasks.
No more special tasks for the next 10 days. Just an adventure with the long journey down to Lake Baikal. Most of the press and pressure is left behind, although the photographers and journalists who took back seats in each discovery still have to meet deadlines. The convoy now has a breathing space, time to think, and time to get to know each other. Before them lie the immense Taiga forests, into which the whole convoy will disappear from view for days on end.
If you think the Amazon forest is big, then the Taiga forest is at least 1.5 times the size of the Amazon forest. It doesn't have the 80, 90 foot and even higher tropical trees that the Amazon does, but its sheer size is impressive. It could be a fairly nasty place to get stuck.
As well as the Camel Trophy itself, there is also the Team Spirit Award. The winner will be voted for by the teams themselves, for the pair who are the most helpful and the most selfless on the event. It's not something you can try and win. You have to earn it the hard way, out on the trail. As the teams prepare to cross the first of many rivers, the Russian spring prepares in its turn to throw everything at them. It was unnaturally hot, the weather as freakish as in Western Europe.
Italy, Canary Islands, Spain, England, Turkey.
The first enemies were the swarms of insects and the choking, grating dust that invaded the bodies of both man and machine. After the dust came torrents of water, rivers that chilled the body, but which at least briefly cleaned the vehicles. But mix dust and water together and you get that old enemy, mud. Although the discoveries are four-wheel drive, there are some places on the planet where even they are temporarily stopped. Soon the winch motors are heard as much as the Discovery engines, and teams begin to work in groups instead of pairs as the route gets tougher. The Discoveries could cope with water up over the windscreen, but when the British vehicle had to be found with sonar, it was time for some help. As if there wasn't enough water already waiting, lots more came down to join it. Falling damp, adding to the rising damp. But rain was not the only thing to fall when Frenchman Bernard Duc rolled his support vehicle in the dark and wet.
Wind up. Keep on winching.
Yes, I was driving. It was fairly good. And suddenly, after a corner, nobody was before me, and I don't see a big hole. And we fall and roll on the side.
Out.
And suddenly our doors were our roof.
Yes.
Sorry.
But everybody is safe. It's the most important.
Okay, winch it to the front.
It was a long night, but only a cup of coffee separated it from the next long day. Wherever you come from, whatever your culture, you need something before facing up to the rigors of a new day. Who knew what it could bring? Crews resorted more and more to the winch and even to bog-cog wheel extensions in an effort to keep going.
All right. Going forward, though.
Going forward, though, became the problem. The bog-cogs looked like science fiction, but in the extreme conditions, they only worked as well as early Flash Gordon special effects. Instead, skillful driving and the traditional flat throttle tended to work rather better. Tracks feet deep in mud, and with endless boggy plains to cross, it needed all the resources of the convoy to keep moving, using either winches or these sand ladders which were carried on the roofs. Working like this, the vehicle could be moved forward, albeit at a painfully slow pace. Some days the convoy walked for 12 hours to move just 9 kilometers. In an area the size of the United States, 9 kilometers is not very far. All of Siberia has a population the size of California, but the terrible winters leave only the hardiest of hunters and gatherers, some with frostbitten fingers, some living in such isolation that they hadn't seen a stranger for 4 years.
Just this bit, okay?
To get through this void, it needed all the participants to work together if they were not still to be there when the winter came. The pressing need to keep the vehicles moving, sometimes day and night, broke down barriers of language and culture. With the river Lena getting ever closer, and with it the knowledge that their companions might wash and smell rather less, the men worked as one team at last. competitors, doctors, and management crew were all united. They all needed. With the laundry done, the convoy set sail across the 200-meter wide Lena, one of Russia's largest rivers, and tacked off toward the far shore. To reach Lake Baikal from here, the convoy will have to go where no vehicle has gone before, up the pass, through the mountains that surround the lake. The pass has been eroded by the river Electar, and the only route through the mountains is up the riverbed, where the Land Rovers will sometimes be windscreen deep in fast-flowing, freezing water. Crossing the Lena is easy compared to the days ahead, when the current will catch the vehicles, floating them downstream until they hit the Land Rover in front, or beach on shore. The interior, a jumble of sodden bedding with floating food. The Germans' discovery rammed a boulder and cracked the differential. Erich Brandenburg leapt out into the freezing water and hurled the boulder out of the way before diving back into the vehicle. The repair had to wait. As the path rises, ice will rime the mornings, and the water will dampen bedding, clothing, and food. But for the competitors, this is the real adventure, and absolutely nothing can dampen their spirits.
Got into some interesting muddy holes. We have one or two vehicles stuck, and about an hour ago we found out that the ambulance had actually tipped over on its side in the river.
When driving up to a meter into the water, it's impossible to see exactly where you're driving, so you need or a car in front of you, or you need to walk through just like we did.
We're going down with two vehicles to help recover the ambulance, hopefully bring them up to camp, get them all dried out, and get them ready for tomorrow's activities.
Tomorrow's activities were the same as the day before, only colder, foggier, and deeper. At last, just as the convoy was beginning to grow webbed feet and scaly skin, they started the descent to one of the largest lakes in the world. Lake Baikal holds 20% of the world's freshwater supply and is more than 500 miles long and a mile deep. In its vast waters, nurtured by an entire local ecosystem, live fish, seals, and crustaceans found nowhere else on the planet. Siberian poet Valentin Rasputin called it a great cathedral of nature, and its vaulted depths have always been revered as holy. It is now, as it always has been, a shaman holy place, where to shout on its shores used to bring the penalty of death. Fortunately, most of the competitors were now too tired to shout. They had done it. The adventure drive was over. 1,000 miles of Siberian forest lay behind them. Ahead lay more special tasks, where the flags on each vehicle would once more become the important symbols they were at the beginning. The previous 10 days had changed the attitudes of every man on the convoy. But competition is competition, and the Yugoslavians wanted to keep their lead, while the Germans and Dutch, close behind, wanted equally to take it away. Once more out of the vehicles, the competitors had to run a kilometre just to get to the canoes, which they then had to inflate and rig. Too breathless to shout, let alone use their lungs to blow up the canoes, they got the pumps moving like piston engines. Lake Baikal might have proved a bit much even for the amazing floating discoveries. So competitors were almost relieved to be paddling canoes and not Land Rovers. The Dutch, masters of waterways back home, took the lead on this varied set of tasks and stretched out a gap only the Germans could possibly close. After more than a fortnight, mostly cooped up in the vehicle, with short nights, long days, and a monotonous diet of freeze-dried food, the competitors had to run up and down a mountain, testing even their extraordinary levels of stamina almost to breaking point.
Has a problem with his knee.
Several, like the Greeks, suffered severely.
Go. Wait. Your knee. Which knee? Did you fall on it or did you twist it? I had it. Sit down. He has a...
Have a bandage.
Bandage, yeah.
You're going to have to go.
The Austrians, on the other hand, ran up and down like mountain goats, winning the task and leaping all over the scoreboard. While some teams found the fast-flowing rivers a hazard, only just keeping their precious route paper dry, German Erich Brandenburg, like a Teutonic Canute, simply kicked the waves into submission.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
All they had to do was cross the ditch and dirt mound the other side. How they did it was entirely up to them. The final leg took the convoy to Irkutsk, along a route as difficult as the main drive. Rotting wooden tracks and bridges, built by Japanese prisoners of war in 1949, had to be made safe, while fallen trees had to be cleared. The route should now be good for another 40 years. It would be easy to get lost in these forests, the size of small countries, empty of life, apart from the occasional bear. They can suck you in, but they never spit you out.
You taking the bushes on the other side here? Is it in the yellow tape today? Yeah, I think there's a yellow tape somewhere.
The final task was deep in here, 270 kilometers south of Irkutsk. This small yellow board changed the outcome of the Camel Trophy. The teams had set out at intervals on this foot orienteering task, armed only with a route map in the endless and almost featureless forest. But nearly everyone became lost. They ended up in a bunch, looking for that elusive yellow square. The Dutch could still be beaten by the Germans, while the English were moving up toward the top three. Everyone had to find the board. But the Germans found only a lonely cameraman. They were so lost that they had lost even their lost fellow competitors. Standing frustrated in the river, they knew that they had just missed their last chance of winning the Camel Trophy. When the teams finally did emerge from the trees, it left Holland clear in the lead, with Germany second and the United Kingdom third. It was time to take stock, to repair both man and machine.
This is what I was doing down trees going.
Is this needed then, I think?
Not in the least, it would hurt me as well, I promise you.
Pardon?
The last few weeks had been hard, as the beards and dark eyes testify. But the men round the campfire had got out what they had put in.
Bad. Initially, I thought it was all hyped up, you know, that camaraderie, I thought, oh, you know, it was special task, everybody would be so mean against each other, but no, it's been excellent. On the convoy, we had a whale of a time, meetings as well, and everybody's sort of helping each other through throughout the day. And the night then, crashing down, putting the tents up, lighting the fire, cooking up, it's been brilliant. Fire.
Men have always told stories round the campfire, but what stories these men would have to tell. Perhaps even the dark, sleeping land around them would have dreams of adventure.
You want something to drink? Oh, yeah.
Holland had won the 11th Camel Trophy, Germany second and the United Kingdom third. That just left the Team Spirit Award, an award that the whole convoy voted for. After spending weeks with their fellow competitors, sharing the same food, pressures, jokes and hardships, they were all equal, but two were more equal than the others. The team from the Canary Islands. The first international motorsport event in the Soviet Union had helped break down the barriers not just between East and West, but between every country, every competitor. They had all fought. They had all won.
The friendship and the camaraderie in the event, that's actually worked very, very well.
The thought of having an opportunity to drive to the Soviet Union was just so mind-boggling that the Soviets would even open up and let 16 or 15 different countries drive across their soil was just like an opening up, something that, 4 or 5 years ago just would have been completely out of the question. And now it just shows the broadening of everybody's mind.
Now it's a special human spirit of all events. During all our troubles and enjoy and everything. For me and for Anatoly, maybe the same. Maybe just later we can digitalize this feeling, but now it's a great human spirit of common activity.
I think having done it in Russia, having done it in the Soviet Union, having achieved 16 countries and I don't know how many journalists into eastern Siberia to do the event, that's got to be a first.
Of the 1990 Camel Trophy are Kamps and Stijn Luyx representing Holland.